Okay, 1.3, we're going to look at why are different places similar. Scale, space, and connections help geographers explain why similarities among places and regions do not result from coincidence. Rarely are things a coincidence. There's a reason for them. When we talk about scale, scale is a relationship between the portion of the Earth being studied and the Earth as a whole. We're going to talk about a constant struggle throughout this whole course about globalization versus local diversity. Globalization is a force or process that involves the entire world and results in making something worldwide in scope. So a lot of times when people refer to things that are worldwide in scope, they'll say it's on a large scale. As we know from earlier studies, when you talk about maps, something on a large scale means very little detail. Maps on a small scale involve great detail, but in this case, when we're talking about on a global scale, we're talking about something that is worldwide. Globalization of the economy has been created primarily by transnational corporations. These are sometimes called multinational corporations. Think about this. Have you ever, or do you think there is any place in the world where people don't know what Nike is, or Coca-Cola, or McDonald's? These are transnational or multinational corporations. They conduct research, they operate factories, sell products in many different countries, not just where their shareholders are located, not just where their headquarters are located. The recession began in 2008. It's been called the first global recession because what happened in one country definitely had an impact across the world in other places. Some people have said, you know, the world has become more flat. Because of science and technology, the world is even. It's more connected. This technological state that we live in now adds for things to become global at a very, very quick rate. You've heard the term going viral. If something comes out in the news, if people post it on YouTube, it goes viral, and before you know it, it's worldwide. It's global in its scale. When we look at this through a geographer's eyes, we go back to this term spatial association. And what you're looking at here is a map of a company called the North Face. If you're not familiar with the North Face is a company that manufactures hiking and camping gear. And if you look at this map, you'll see that they're headquartered in Greensboro, North Carolina, and San Leandro, California. They have distribution centers here in the United States spread from coast to coast, but its manufacturing takes place in Mexico, Central America, South America, Eastern Europe, Turkey, South Asia, East Asia, and Southeast Asia. Now, why is that? Well, maybe the process of manufacturing the parts, the labor are cheaper in this part of the world, but they need people that are skilled in high tech to do their research and development here in the United States. And their company's headquarters are here in the United States, but it is global. McDonald's, Nike, all transnational, all multinational corporations operate on the same scale, on the same concept. They are around the world with different headquarters, distribution centers, and manufacturing centers depending on what the market dictates. Not only when we talk about globalization in terms of economy, you can talk about it in terms of culture. Geographers observe that increasingly uniform cultural preferences produce uniform or global landscapes of material artifacts and cultural values. For example, if you travel up down the east coast of Florida, you leave New Smyrna, go through Daytona, Holly Hill, Ormond Beach, it all pretty much looks the same. We mentioned in an earlier section of what the cultural landscape by Carl Sauer was. It's both the man-made and human features of a place. Well, with globalization, what we're seeing is those man-made features are the same wherever you go. Every McDonald's looks the same. Every Walmart looks the same. Every Handyway, every Citgo gas station is the same. And it's done that way deliberately, okay? It is on purpose. There's no happenstance for that. That's to create a visual appearance that differs as little as possible. It gives customers a sense of familiarity, even if they're in an unfamiliar place, that, hey, I know what I'm going to get when I go in here. All McDonald's are the same. All Starbucks are the same. And that's around the world. That's done around the world on purpose. A McDonald's in China, a McDonald's in Dubai. You might find a couple menu differences, but for the most part, it's the same. And it's done that way for a reason. That's globalization, not only of an economic product, but also in terms of culture. Space refers to the physical gap or interval between two objects. Geographers think about this arrangement of people, activities, and they try to understand why. Remember those three questions again: where, why, what are the effects? And the arrangement of these features in space, it refers to distribution. Okay, let's talk about distribution for a minute. Three main properties of distribution across the Earth. They are density, concentration, and pattern. When you think of density, that's how often does something occur in space. So we're going to show you in a minute a map of some housing and a housing development. How many houses on that map? What are the total number of houses within that area? Okay, so you're looking at a frequency. How many in this area of land? Concentration is the extent of a feature spread over space. And what I mean by spread is, are they clustered together? Okay, I could have 30 houses in a square mile, but are they all tight together? And you've seen those housing developments where there's actually no yard. The houses are right on top of one another. They're clustered together. Or are they far apart? Is there a big lot? Is there a yard in between these, a fence in between them? Are they spread out? So when you're talking about concentration, just remember it's the spread of something over space. And the third feature of distribution is pattern. Is there a pattern? Is there a geometric arrangement? Are houses on a street linear? Are they circular? You've seen those cul-de-sacs that are circular. How are they laid out? Are they laid out that way for a reason? So density is the frequency with which something occurs. Concentration is how it is spread out. Is it clustered or dispersed? And pattern, is there a logical arrangement to these things in space? You know, you can look at this map here of the houses. You can see what's the density. How many houses within this development? What's the concentration? How are they spread out? Are they spread out evenly? Are they clustered together? Are they dispersed? And also, is there some type of geometric pattern here? Are they linear? Are they circular? You see there's a cul-de-sac here. They're here in a straight line. Okay, those are the three parts of distribution you need to know. You can apply this also to baseball teams. If you look here in 1952, baseball teams, both American and National League teams, were primarily found in the Northeast. Okay, if you look at the number, that changed over time. So did the distribution, so did the concentration. 2013, you could see that Major League Baseball teams are spread across the country. There's no logical pattern here. They follow more population centers and TV markets, but there is definitely more. So the density has changed within the United States. The concentration has changed within the United States. They're no longer just clustered in the Northeast. They're spread out across the whole country, and there is no clear geometric pattern to this. All right. In United States history, there is a definite thought behind pattern. We operate since 1785 on the township and range system. The land ordinance of 1785 began here in the Ohio area of the United States, and as America moved westward, they wanted to plan our development, and they decided they would go with the township and range system. The township and range system is a set of 6 square miles by 6 square miles for a total of 36 miles. Each of these is divided into 36 equal sections. It is done this way on purpose. It allows for an even distribution of land ownership. It allows for an even distribution of agriculture. These areas were planned and this way on purpose. If you fly over the Midwest in an airplane and you look down, you will easily see these geometric patterns in the landscape. And this goes back to the Land Ordinance of 1785. Not all countries followed this. For example, in Europe, they used the Mets and Bounds system. And really, it's irregular shapes where people would walk off and mark off with stones and walls their property, but there was no logical pattern. There was no thought to distribution. There was no thought to density. The French use a system known as the long lot system. You can find that in parts of Canada. You can find that in parts of Louisiana where there are French settlements. But really, the long lot system are these long, narrow lots of land where every lot has access to water. And it was designed that way on purpose. So some, like the township and range, have a logical, thought-out distribution. Mets and Bounds, on the other hand, really does not. It's kind of haphazard. Here you see the 6 mile by 6 mile, and even within each mile, it's divided up into 36 even plots of land. This helped promote agriculture. This was helping promote people to own equal amounts of land with income distribution. This was really a thought-out process, and it goes back to the Land Ordinance of 1785. Cultural identity in space. Patterns in space vary according to gender, ethnicity, and even sexuality. The cultural landscape has the ability to communicate to people what the accepted norm is within a place. Let's look at a couple examples here. A bar or a park that makes whites feel welcome and people of color unwelcome, or vice versa. This is my hood, this is the type of hood we're in. Certain people welcome, certain people not welcome. Now, unfortunately, that still exists to this day. And we're not just talking about the United States here, guys. When we use these examples, we're talking about worldwide. Okay, it might not happen in our neighborhood, but it does happen in places around the earth. An inviting shopping district of people practicing alternative lifestyles, located in close proximity where many same-sex couples live. There are certain stores, there are certain businesses, and there are certain areas that cater to certain groups of people. And we see that, and that is cultural identity in space. You're not going to go to a Mall of the Millennia in Orlando with its very upscale, ritzy Louis Vuitton Coach purses and see a lot of redneck people walking there. You're just not going to find that. That is not where they would identify themselves. Those shops aren't really created with those type of people in mind. On the reverse hand, you're not going to find the Kardashians going to a Dollar General store. That's just not how that store was designed for that group of people in mind. So people identify themselves culturally in space as well. Ethnicities tend to cluster in certain neighborhoods. People of different economic backgrounds and socioeconomic backgrounds cluster in certain neighborhoods. People of different sexual orientations also tend to cluster in certain neighborhoods. Here you see a map, cities with the highest rate of same-sex couples. As you could see, they're clustered. Okay, South Florida, parts of the Northeast, and out west. But you don't see them here out west. You don't see them in the Great Plains states. That's not the cultural identity where these people would associate themselves. And that's not to say that you don't find any same-sex couples there. But in the cultural landscape, you will definitely find more of them here in these areas. Now, once again, the geographer would ask where, and you see it in this map, but then the next two questions, why? Okay, why, and then what are its effects? Even in Paris. And remember, when we use these examples, a lot of them I use are local, so you can relate to it and picture it in your mind, but we're talking about this phenomena worldwide. So this map shows you gay and lesbians in Paris, how even there they cluster in certain areas, certain neighborhoods. Cultural identity in space. Branches of geography that seek to better understand the dynamics of gender, ethnicity, and sexuality by looking at the matter through different lenses. Okay, there is behavioral geography. That's a branch of human geography that attempts to understand the psychological basis for individual human actions. Behavioral geography, it's psychology. Why do people act that way depending on where they're at? Okay, humanistic geography is a branch of human geography that emphasizes the different ways that individuals perceive their surrounding environment. Okay, why do they look at the cultural landscape and they identify this as home? Remember earlier we talked about different types of regions, and there's a vernacular region, a perceptual region. Okay, that would tie in more with humanistic geography. Then there is post-structuralist geography, which emphasizes the need to understand multiple perspectives regarding space. Okay, three different types here: behavioral, humanistic, and post-culturalist geography. Currently, this is a hot topic, anti-gay laws. I'm speaking now here in 2013, but the Soviet Union just passed laws that are very anti-gay. There's even thoughts, some people say, well, let's boycott the Olympics in the Soviet Union over this. These laws show you where it's punishable by death, imprisonment, fines, or other. And as you know, this topic of gay marriage is a hot-button topic here in the United States. It's worldwide. And as you can see, some countries are definitely more liberal than others. And a geographer would say, where is this happening? You see it on a map. Why? And what are the effects? Okay, that's the last question, and a very important question. What are the effects? Connections between places. People, ideas, and objects move via connections through one of three different types of diffusion. Now, we've mentioned earlier different types of density. Here we're talking about different types of diffusion. The first is relocation diffusion. Relocation diffusion is the spread of an idea through physical movement of people from one place to another. Key term here being physical movement. That's relocation. You get up, you move, you take it with you. The second type is expansion diffusion. It's the spread of a feature from one place to another in an additive process. Now, within expansion diffusion, there are different types, subcategories. There's hierarchical diffusion. That is the spread of an idea from persons or nodes of authority to other people. One easy way to remember hierarchical diffusion is from the top down. If our principal, Mr. Roulette, says there is going to be a dress code and every Friday people are going to wear Cuda colors, and I expect everybody to wear Cuda colors, and everybody's going to wear them, that is hierarchical diffusion. Okay, it's from the top down. The boss said, here's what we're wearing on Fridays. That's the dress code. That's what we're doing. Okay, that's hierarchical from the top down. The other type is contagious diffusion. It's rapid. It's widespread diffusion of a characteristic through population. Think of a disease, okay, how it spreads. One person sneezes. It's random. People get it. They spread it. It happens quickly. This can happen in many different forms. It can happen with clothing, it can happen with music, it can happen with language and slang that people use. So hierarchical is from the top down, contagious is rapid, widespread. The other type, let me go through this and I'll come back, is stimulus diffusion. Stimulus diffusion is the spread of an underlying principle even though the characteristic itself apparently fails to diffuse. The features of the Apple's iPhone or iPad. Okay, even though not everybody buys that iPhone or that iPad, other competitors, Samsung Galaxy, Google, and what other, they will copy the features and they will use them in their own products. So if I go buy a Samsung Galaxy, even though that's an Android and not an iPhone, many of those features, the texting, the video, whatever, are going to be the same that Apple came out with on their iPhone. That is stimulus diffusion. It's an underlying principle idea. Not everybody's going to buy the iPhone, but people are going to copy it. Other people are going to use it. That is stimulus diffusion. Now let's go back to a couple of these examples. Relocation diffusion. Okay, you see this is, and I apologize for the misspelling up there, percent of purses containing a euro coin. Euro is the currency in the European Union. And you see February 2002 here in Paris. 100%, no, not really, but pretty close here. By May, it's getting more and more. The density is increasing. By August, it's increasing. November 2002, it's very much all throughout this area. Okay, hierarchical diffusion, as I said, that's from the top down. All right, the top down. When the boss says this is the way it is, that's the way it is, and everybody does it from the top down. There's kind of an old saying, something rolls downhill, and that's absolutely correct in this case. SMS texting. You can see here unequal connections, unequal distributions. You see where it's heavier in some places, in some states, in some counties, and then all of a sudden out of nowhere there's some counties where it doesn't happen. Okay, geographers, asking yourself where, why right here in Texas is nobody texting? Do they have cars? Are there people there? You got to ask yourself. That's a very, very good question. And what are the effects? And of course, here in Florida, everybody texts. Not in class, though, right? Connections between places. We mentioned stimulus diffusion. That's that underlying idea. All right. Spatial interaction. The further away someone is from you, the less likely you two are to interact. Duh. That's common sense. And here's the opposite, guys. The closer you are to somebody, the more likely you are to interact. So here's a little tip for you. If you think somebody's cute in class, don't sit on the opposite side of the room. This probably goes out to the guys more than girls. Girls usually get this. Guys, sit close to them. If you like somebody, get close to them. Girls will find a way to put themselves in the path of the guy they like. Guys aren't smart enough to figure that out, but that's the case because the closer you are, the more chances are you're going to interact, and that's spatial interaction. Electronic communications have almost removed any barriers to interaction between people who are far apart. They have cell phones, they have satellite, they have internet almost all around the world. Okay? That wasn't the case 50 years ago. That wasn't the case 20 years ago. Things have really, really changed in a short amount of time because of technology. Access to the technology is of interest to geographers. There is a core where most technology is found, where it comes from. North America, Western Europe, and Japan. We're going to talk later on about world cities. What 3 cities dominate all of this? Internet, TV. New York in North America, London in Western Europe, and Tokyo in Japan. Then we have the periphery, those countries that aren't quite as developed, where you don't find as much electronic communication, especially in poor parts of Africa, Asia, and Latin America. But that's not to say it doesn't exist. For example, in North America, everybody probably has a television in their bedroom. Everybody in the house probably owns their own cell phone. Well, if I go to Africa, they still have TV, they still have cell phones, but they might only have one in the whole town. And everybody goes to that one TV to watch. Or they might have one phone in the whole town that everybody shares or uses. Okay, so the density there is not quite the same. Space-time compression is a concept you have to get familiar with. Space-time compression, and you can see historically how it's changed. Columbus in 1492 sailed the ocean blue. 37 days it took him to get from point A to point B. By 1927, Lindbergh, using an airplane, flew across the Atlantic in 34 hours. Way to go, Charles. Big hero. Went from New York to Paris. 1962, John Glenn went up in a capsule out in outer space. He went around the Earth 3 whole times in 5 hours. As you can see, what's happening here, it's taking a shorter amount of time to get from point A to point B. That is referred to as space-time compression. With everything going viral now on the internet, as people hold up a cell phone and capture an image or take a picture, things are almost instantaneous. There is very little delay. Somebody can go on YouTube and watch this lecture right now at the same time that you're listening to it, okay? Space-time compression is shrinking. The amount of time it takes for something to get from point A to point B is becoming less and less and less, and that's because of technology.